I'm Osur. I'm with Forrester Research. I'm a principal analyst in the interactive marketing coverage area. Happy to be with you guys in the after lunch slot. So, when I was planning this presentation, I knew it was going to be after lunch, kind of a long slot as well. Kind of scared everyone was going to be falling asleep. So I made this, put a little bit more case studies in here. I'm not going to be throwing too many numbers at you because I'm definitely cognizant of the fact that it's hot outside and you did just have a nice lunch. So we're here to talk about the future of social media. We're going to get into the future of social media. It's definitely a topic that a lot of people have opinions about, and we're going to kind of go through those today. So social media, even the definition of social media can be somewhat in question. What does it mean? What are the channels? Is this Facebook, YouTube, forums, user-generated content, customer reviews, wikis, which are put together by people really in a collaborative style? So most marketers really approach social media as a jungle of these channels, of these technologies. But at the end of the day, it's really just more about the people. So these technologies, the channels, they're important, but social media is about the connections between people and between brands. And that's really what we're going to go through today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the current state of social media, how big it is. You all really are obviously aware of how popular it is. We're going to talk about how it is global now, whether you're prepared for that or not. Social media is extremely global. We're going to go through some examples, best practices, how marketers are using it today. And then also, we're going to go and get into that future part of it. So we're going to look ahead and talk through it. So just a quick background about myself too, which I forgot to go into. I'm fairly new to Forrester. I came over from the National Basketball Association, where I managed database marketing, email marketing, digital marketing for membership programs, responsible for acquiring fans, engaging them, and then also monetizing those relationships. And our social media efforts at the NBA at a global level were very aggressive. When I left, we were around 9 million fans on Facebook, over 2.5 million followers on Twitter. And on the way here, I was really kind of thinking of, I was really in a position of luxury over there, in a position where I think a lot of your clients probably don't have, in that we were part of a passionate brand that people really had an affinity for. So it was very easy for us to build up those fan bases through social media and then try to monetize those relationships. So today what I want to be talking about is not so much of those situations that are really where fans and customers are gravitating towards brands, but really more other situations that are more challenging for marketers, and how do you think about how to use these channels to connect with those customers. So let's kind of get into it. So before social media, it was really a one-way communication, obviously, between marketers and companies and customers. And it was much easier to control this dynamic. But with social media, consumers are now talking to each other, and these conversations are happening in public view. These aren't necessarily private conversations. They can be talking about brands, they can talk about marketers to each other, but millions of people can also be voyeurs and sitting in on these conversations. And so social media really enables this interpersonal communication between the marketers and the individuals. So how big is social media now? Obviously, with every passing day, there's a new stat that comes out. But one thing that we like to do is kind of compare it to other behaviors out there, other mediums that people are doing online. And social media is it's growing extremely quickly. Still the two most popular things to do online are email and search. Social media is right after that, but it is quickly catching up. And in terms of social media and where people are spending their time, this just came out from Pew Research. So taking a look at the frequency at which people are checking in or spending time with social media platforms and networks. So they took a look at really the bigger players. So you've got MySpace, which is obviously not what it used to be. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, other social media networks. And Facebook and Twitter are really far ahead in terms of the frequency of time that people are interacting with these on a daily basis. Really Facebook far and ahead. We're going to dig into some of these consumer segments that are more involved with Twitter in a second. So it's all good to know what are these platforms are on social media, but just going back overall, when the internet was first launched a generation ago at this point, it was about putting information online, it was about communicating online, and so search developed as a way to parse through and organize that information and really try to get an understanding of what was out there. And so what we're seeing now is that the internet has really always been about search and information, but search is now becoming, in and of itself, increasingly social as well. So here's a Google search return for Tiger Woods, and you can see down at the bottom, what also comes back are some tweets about Tiger Woods directly within the search results. So you can see here that information that's posted on social networks does turn up in searches as well. Here's another one on Bing, and do a search for Sarah Palin, who's a political figure here in the US. Right at the top, tweets about Sarah Palin come back. And just kind of going back over the Tiger, there's also another return there for his Wikipedia page, which is really another form of social media. So you can see that search is really now social as well. And mobile, on your mobile devices, there are many different social behaviors that you can enact. So you can tweet with friends, you can post on Facebook what your status might be or other social networks, you can check in through geolocation services. And so this is also inherently becoming social as well. You kind of think of it as social on the go is really what mobile is becoming. So I wanted to just present to you guys how we at Forrester really take a look at the segmentation of people who are participating in social media, and we structure this in the form of a ladder. So the people at the top are more active in social media, and then it ladders downward to the inactives. So up the top we have your creators. So these are the people who are out there actively producing information. They're building their own websites, they're writing their own blogs, they're creating their own videos and uploading them and asking their friends to, hey, check this out. Then we have a newer segment that we saw has come out really in the last year and a half or so, and this is who we call the conversationalists. And these are the people who are addicted, almost, to updating their status on Facebook or on Twitter. So if they're going out to buy bagels at the store around the corner, they're tweeting or updating their Facebook status, say, hey, going out to buy bagels, you know, who wants to meet me? And we're going to dig into this kind of a little bit, how this has emerged and really the behaviors there, because it's an important segment. Then we also have the critics. So these are the people who participate in ratings and reviews online. And there's some case studies we're going to talk about that. We've got the collectors. So these are people who do participate at a high level. They may be people who vote on sites. They follow RSS feeds. We've got the joiners, and this is one of the faster growing segments, which kind of leads to the fact that social media is still growing. So with the joiners, these are people who have a profile on a social networking site. They're probably not creating content on a very frequent basis. It's really more like they're maintaining, kind of watching what everyone else is doing. Then we have the spectators. So these are people who sit on the sideline. They're reading blogs, they're reading websites. They're not active participants. They're just consuming content, more or less. And then down at the bottom, we have the inactives. So what we've seen is that with some of these behavioral segments, some of the categories are growing while others are hitting a plateau. We've seen these conversationalists really come into form over the last year and a half or so. So these are the people, as I said, who are constantly updating their status. Then we have the joiners. So these are the people who are really just more or less new to social media. They've created profiles. They're checking in on their status or on their profiles. They're seeing what their friends are doing. And this is really the category that demonstrates that there's still a lot of room for growth in terms of social media. Some of the other categories, though, we are seeing some plateauing in behavior in terms of the overall sizes. So the creators, the critics, the spectators, these categories, we're starting to see some drop-off, not as much growth as we've seen in past years. So in terms of the big trends that we're seeing, this new behavior, the conversationalists, there's this huge threat with social media right now where there is so much stuff out there. If you're on Twitter, if you follow more than 10 people, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's extremely hard to try to cut through all the clutter out there. And from a marketer's perspective, you can imagine how difficult it is to really try to figure out what do I do to connect with people and cut through this clutter. What we're also seeing is that the social media platforms are starting to develop tools so that they can begin to, so that the users can start to parse through this clutter. And that it's now, social media is inherently global. We'll go through some examples about that. And that mobile is having a huge impact on social. So now social, you can participate in social without having to be tied or tethered to your desktop computer. You can really do it 24/7. You see a lot of stories about people who bring their mobile devices into bed with them. They check before they go to bed what their friends are up to. They wake up in the morning, first thing they do is they flip on their phone and see what happened overnight. It's crazy, but it's true. Okay, so in terms of the conversationalists and some trends that we're seeing here, so really with the emergence of Twitter over the last year and a half, you've seen these shorter, more frequent conversations happening, and this is obviously contributing to the clutter. Facebook also responded to the success of Twitter by allowing their users to update their profiles using this short character limits as well. And it's become extremely popular. So as all this conversation grows, obviously, the clutter really continues. So you can see here, we asked, we posed a question to consumers, approximately how many friends, followers, or connections do you have on each of these sites? So Facebook friends, MySpace friends, people I follow on Twitter. And you can see here, especially when you cut it by age, from Generation Y, which ages 18 to 30, you can see on Facebook friends, 220 friends, or they're following more than 80 people on Twitter. And you can imagine the volume of conversations that are going on and how difficult it is to really keep up with that. So obviously, marketing in this environment is extremely challenging. So one solution that is emerging is inboxes that allow you to organize these communications and information. And Facebook was really one of the first ones to come out with this. This was towards the end of last year, where they were looking to combine email, Facebook communications, and even text messages into one streamlined inbox. What they're trying to do is obviously they're trying to get people to spend more time within Facebook so that they can sell more display ads. But they really want to focus all this messaging into a unified system and then provide filters to people so that only their trusted brands can communicate them and their friends can communicate with them into that inbox. So here's what the inbox looks like if you haven't seen one yet on Facebook. Obviously it looks fairly similar to the typical Facebook interface, just really more messages, has the ability to sort them as well and kind of bucket them into folders. But does this really solve the problem? Not really, because you could get filtered out. And again, if you're not relevant, if people don't have that connection, the affinity for your brand, then you're not relevant and you're really just going to fall to the bottom of the bin. So we're going to now take a look at the globalization of social media, which has really added to another layer of challenges and also opportunities for marketers. So does anyone know what this map represents? Not all at once. Email traffic? Was it? Yes, connections. That's right. So this is a map. So I think some of the engineers at Facebook created this. So each of the lines, the lines are in white. It represents your friends that you have and the connections that you have. So all the areas in white really representing the world where there's a lot of Facebook activity going on. But you can also see how it's spanning across the globe, really. And the moral of the story here is that social media is incredibly, incredibly global. And it's difficult to plan and execute marketing programs because of that globalization. So at Forrester we call we call it the groundswell, and that's basically the emerging behavior in terms of customer empowerment that's really overtaking the marketing environment. And so And if you look here, this represents a handful of countries and the percent of people, online users who are engaged in social media. So obviously you can see Australia 84%, Japan 83%, Canada 79%. So obviously a high percentage of adults who are online are participating in social media all across the globe. And in fact, about 70% of Facebook users are now from outside the US. So this was exactly flipped about 4 years ago, and even a year before that, it was 95% US. So you can see here that the world is certainly changing in terms of social media, and the same for Twitter as well, which is now skewing non-US compared to US. So I wanted to walk through one example of some of the challenges that this globalization represents. So Toyota was launching a new vehicle in the UK called the IQ. And what they did was they did blogger outreach, they did social media communication about this new vehicle, which was a very fuel-efficient vehicle. And they reached more than 100 million people. But however, even though the car was only available in the UK, 96 million people that they reached were outside of the UK. And this is really just part of the fallout from the fact that sometimes when you do this global social media outreach, it's difficult to really put fences around your marketing programs and really precisely geo-target. So obviously beyond language in and of itself, there's a couple other risks associated with social media when you talk about the globalization of it. You know, when you're tweeting or posting in a specific language, you do need to keep in mind that there's people that are not native speakers of that language, but also there's considerations like product availability and pricing. So if you push out a campaign, talk about how a product like the Toyota IQ is now available. Well, if I'm sitting in Canada and I happen to read a blog about that, it's not available in my market. So that's really not very relevant to me. Same goes with pricing. If you're communicating pricing through marketing campaigns, there's challenges there in terms of the globalization. Promotions and campaigns, so say your brand positioning in North America is very different than it is in Europe, then you have to be careful there in terms of the execution of that. And then of course legal and regulatory considerations. So two good examples in terms of industries that often have difficulties here are financial services and healthcare and pharmaceuticals, which are both highly regulated industries. So for example, in the US here, the laws and the regulations in terms of direct-to-consumer advertising for pharmaceuticals, for drugs, are much less stringent than they are in the EU. So when Pfizer or Glaxo in North America does a campaign associated with that, they have to be extremely careful, because if they are conducting in what would be perceived as direct-to-consumer advertising in a more highly regulated market, then they could be in trouble. So now I want to get into part of the program. We're going to just go through a bunch of different examples that are going to highlight some of the trends that we just discussed, and also show you how some marketers are approaching social media in general. At Forrester, we have a general framework when it comes to helping marketers determine how do you plan for social media, how do you do the strategy, how do you also, what are the considerations in terms of budget and resources, and it's the POST framework. So the P is for people, so really understanding who your target audience is, and in terms of how do they behave through social media channels, which ones are they using, and how do they tend to interact with those. The O is objectives, so what do you want to accomplish from any social media program? So what are your goals there? The strategy is really what kind of behaviors are you trying to change among your consumers here? So overall, how do you want to approach the relationship? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to get out of it? And then the technology part of it is really which channels you want to use, and then on the which technologies does your organization need to employ in order to track and execute this program. So we're going to go through a couple examples that really did a nice job in terms of hitting on these points. So the areas of the examples I bucketed in are right here. So we're going to go through some that build awareness for for the marketer, some that work on acquiring fans. So how many Facebook fans or Twitter followers can you acquire through a promotion? Build engagement, community building, customer reviews, which is becoming extremely powerful, and then social CRM. And we're going to talk about what exactly does that mean, because probably everyone in the room has a different definition of what social CRM is. So the first one we're going to talk about is Jimmy Choo, which is the luxury shoe brand. So it's about building awareness. So they had a new shoe product that they wanted to generate awareness for in the UK. It was called the Trainer. And so they wanted to generate PR buzz around it and then also drive people to stores, drive sales around it. So what they did was they worked with Foursquare, the geolocation-based social media provider, and they created a treasure hunt where clues were left. They were posted on Foursquare, Twitter, Facebook. They sent them out, and then people had to go around town and search, try to find out where the shoes were. And so the first person who would arrive at that location as part of this treasure hunt would receive a free pair of shoes. So this is an invitation that was in Jimmy Choo store locations promoting this. So one way that they went about promoting it was for all the foot traffic that was existing coming into their stores. They wanted to encourage people to participate in this digital campaign. Quite often you see it going the other direction where you have digital campaigns trying to push people in store. This one was kind of going both ways, which is great. And then overall, some of the results, so they increased sales. So in terms of the in-store sales for the new shoes went up about 1/3, and a lot of that was attributed to the PR that they got out of it. In terms of the blogs, they had 250 blogs who covered this trainer hunt, which I find to be pretty amazing. And 1 in 17 users of Foursquare in London at that time were participating in that hunt. So overall, for Jimmy Choo, definitely a success. The second one relates to just really bulking up your fan base on Facebook. And this is for Bush's Best Baked Beans. So I'm sure for people outside the US in the room, definitely not familiar with this. This is canned beans. This is exciting, exciting stuff. So the screenshot here, this is on the Cooking Channel website. And this is a pre-roll video ad. And it's promoting this promotion for Bush's Best. And Duke is the dog, he's the mascot, he's the spokes dog, I guess you would say, for Bush's Best Beans. And he's saying, does anyone want to buy Bush's secret family recipe for the baked beans? And then the next, as the pre-roll ad continues on, it says, well, go to Facebook and make me an offer. And you have to go to Facebook, you click on the link, it takes you to the Facebook page, and you have to like Bush's to continue on with the promotion. So they're basically gating this capability, so you have to like it in order to continue. So you click like, and then you see there's 3 different offers that 3 fans of Bush's Best Baked Beans made in terms of, Duke, this is what I'll offer you for the secret family recipe. Apparently people are very passionate about Bush's Baked Beans. You can read all the, on their social media site. So this is simply a tactic just to get likes. So at the end of this, what happens is they collect likes from this, they build up their base, and then over time, you're going to be receiving updates in your news stream and your news feed from Bush's, and then they're going to be providing you with offers and discounts and otherwise trying to engage you. Fairly straightforward. So the next one is similar, but it's fan engagement and acquisition. This is for ESPN, the sports network based here in the States. And so they have their awards. They call it the ESPYs. And what they do is they really try to get people to tap into people's networks, their affinities, to promote the voting, and then from that they try to really tap into all of your crazy friends to then like ESPN. So you can see here, I saw this in my news feeds from my friend Dan. He had just voted for the ESPYs. He voted for a mixed martial arts fighter, and then the posting encourages you to go click and vote now. So let's say I completely disagree that he voted for this guy. for the mixed martial arts fighter of the year. So I want to go ahead and vote. So the first thing that happens is I get a request for permission that says, in order for you to vote, you have to do the following things. You have to give us permission to access your basic information. You have to agree that we can send emails to you, which is a great way to build up their email database. And then also you agree that ESPN can post to your wall. And the benefit there is exactly what we saw with Dan's post, is that now all of my friends, after I vote, will see that I voted. So then when you go through, you go to the Vote Now page, and Facebook, you have to like ESPN in order to continue. You come to the next page, you can vote for your favorite male athlete, and then there's 33 things you can vote for. You spend all day doing that. I didn't do that. And then at the close of it, of course, you can share with friends, you can post to Facebook. Again, just kind of closing the loop, trying to generate more interest, more conversation about it, and acquire more people. So you can see how this kind of feeds on itself. The next one is related to community building. So Audi, the car manufacturer, was coming out with a new car, the A1. And they were looking to generate as much buzz about the car as possible prior to the introduction, to really try to goose pre-sales. And so what was also important to them, though, was really doing some market research and understanding what the marketplace was interested in and the buzz around the brand itself. So they wanted to create a community where they can really listen into the conversation, but then focus the conversation around Audi and around this new vehicle. So what they did was they aggregated buzz from a lot of the other social media sites into one real micro social media network surrounding the Audi A1. And so this is what this looked like, the Audi A1 community and the social web. So if you posted on Facebook or Twitter or other social media sites associated with this, what this would do is it would then scrape those sites, it would then post them here, and you can really see all the conversation and chatter around the Audi A1. They also allowed people to submit their own designs for the vehicle in advance of the release. So what did this get them? So they ended up with the largest number of pre-orders in the history of the company. Almost 120 million impressions were associated with it. And then on the digital side, 5.5 million visitors, 290,000 blog posts, which sounds like a lot to me. 38,000 people submitted customized designs for the vehicle, so you can really see that because they were able to harness all the passion that people had for this brand and really corral it and put it into one site, they were able to really energize the base of fans for Audi. Next one also is about community building. So Armani, they really had two goals here. One of them was to build awareness for a new fragrance, and the second one was associated with a philanthropic side. So they're involved with UNICEF and a clean water project. So what they did was they launched a campaign called Aqua for Life, and the whole premise of it was really taps into extremely nicely with the overall concept of social media, where you have lots of people kind of getting together, connected digitally, really across the world. And so the theme of it was drop by drop, we can make a difference. So they said for every fan that we get in the month, and it was a 1-month campaign, that we're gonna donate $1 towards the program. And so they encouraged everyone who's involved to really recruit as many friends as possible to participate in the program and really try to tap into people's social networks for the betterment of this philanthropic effort. And so what they did was they used their Facebook site, they used their brand site, they had paid media associated with it as well to drive people towards this and become fans of Aqua for Life, so that then they can drive donations for it. And so after the campaign, they measured brand sentiment and how it changed. They saw that it increased from 60% to 70%, which from a brand perspective, they're extremely happy with. They also saw their overall fan base increase from 15,000 to 35,000 just over the course of the 1-month campaign. And then on the philanthropic side, they donated the equivalent of 10 million days of clean water to the UNICEF TAP project. So a great success for them. Community reviews. So this is, there's a recent study that came out about customer reviews that are posted online. So people evaluating products or services, putting their opinions online about it. And that study indicated that customer reviews are now more influential than online ads in terms of people's perception. And for marketers, it's definitely underutilized. You don't see as much of it, and the power of recommendations and other people's opinions is extremely, extremely profound. So TurboTax is a software company. They make for paying your taxes. And what they wanted to do was try to bottle the power of customer reviews and recommendations so that they can drive sales and really drive brand equity in TurboTax. So what they did was they create on TurboTax.com, they created the ability where you can post reviews and then easily share them by friend casting to your friends on Facebook. So here are two examples of reviews. Interestingly enough, they're both 5-star reviews. Surprise, surprise, of the product. And you can see that there is the ability to share it on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn for the reviews. And so in terms of how this helped, they saw a large lift in sales for the web version of the product year over year, of which most of that was attributed to this new strategy of trying to harness these customer reviews. On the friend casting side, they saw that when they compared it to banner ads, that the ability for people to send out these recommendations to their friends and these customer reviews proved to be more effective in terms of influence than the banner ads. And then they also saw that when they looked at the mix of the customers that they're reaching through different media, that the friend casting element brought in reached more new customers as opposed to reaching people maybe who were already familiar or previously bought TurboTax. And overall, there was over 100,000 reviews that were posted on the TurboTax site. So in terms of building up that community of reviewers, it definitely has a great deal of critical mass that they can harness.